Hey guys, I have another review for you today. The book I have for you today is Ebony and Ivy, Race, Slavery, and the Troubled History of America's Universities by Craig Stephen Wilder. This book was published in September 2013 by Bloomsbury. This has 432 pages, but quite a chunk of them are like bibliographies and just sources because it has a lot of sources. And it has 17 ratings on Goodreads. So obviously this is nonfiction. It pretty much goes through U.S. history from before the Revolution all the way up until I think after the Civil War, but it's not like a Civil War book or a Revolutionary War book. It mainly focuses around the history of education in relation to slavery and the slave trade. Also, it goes into race relations, especially with the Native Americans. How a lot of the universities that have started in the United States, Ivy League universities, very prestigious universities that have a lot of U.S. history, some of them were originally established to educate the Native Americans, to make them more Christian, to make them more malleable, and some people said straight up to eradicate their culture because they felt that being white and Christian was the natural state of a white person, and so a white person would thrive with Christianity. But when a person of color was Christian, it would naturally destroy their culture and them, in which kind of some people felt that it was a good thing. So that's one reason why they wanted to proselytize to the natives, because they felt that God gave white people the world, and so if God got to the natives, they would naturally go away. But some people didn't want them, well, definitely some people wanted them eradicated, but some people just wanted them to be better and to help them. And so a lot of these schools were established to educate the Native Americans and how to be civil and in Christianity, and to proselytize to them and to evangelize them. And they were meant to go back to their communities and make the rest of the Native Americans Christian also. Also, the universities were established because so many families who had hands in the slave trade, they donated money to create these universities because they wanted to give money to a local university in their country and not send their kids all the way over to Europe where they didn't have slaves, and so they wouldn't actually be taught the family business. They wanted people to know how to be slave masters. So with that aspect, the motive to educate the natives kind of phased away, and some of these schools specific to natives were outright destroyed. And so that is how the universities kind of became a really big pillar in supporting slavery, because these universities were tasked with educating the future slave masters, and it was very profitable business, and a lot of these universities were literally made by slaves. Also, these universities were very vital in rationalizing slavery and in using their interpretation of science to justify owning another human being, either by saying that they're not another human being, that they're a completely different species, or they are physiologically inferior to white people to justify slavery. And then it goes up through the history where there was a bit of a shift in thinking, especially in between the North and South, about, keeping around slaves. Is it fair? Is it ethically? Is it moral? And of course it started in the North, but the North had quite a few slaves too. And it kind of also goes through the debates that people had. And it was very interesting in the sense that someone could be against slavery, but at the same time not an abolitionist. I thought that was kind of really crazy, but it talks about those people here eventually where people are like, hey, I don't like slavery, but I'm totally not saying we should free them. That's crazy talk, but it's horrible that we own them. It's like, I don't know, like you can see all these rationalizations, and there are plenty of quotes from, past chairmen of these universities, their justifications, the history of many of these universities, just a lot of stuff. The book itself, I guess you can say it's a bit dry. It reads like an academic text, but there's so much information that I found it very valuable, and I really did appreciate what this illustrated. And essentially, it helped articulate the motives of who supported slavery and how intellectual the argument got, how deep entrenched this whole idea was. I don't really know what else I can say about it. Most of the quotes I'm here from are from a lot of documents, mostly by white people, of course. So it's not like a gruesome story of slavery like you would hear if you was from like the slave's perspective, but in another sense, like just seeing it from this institutionalized perspective, how cold and callous and how pragmatic they were about owning people and how intellectual the argument got. So yeah, I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely appreciated the information. I did enjoy this book. I thought it was very useful, and I mean it's not necessarily new ideas, or it just elaborates more on how involved all levels of society and all these pillars in society were all working to support slavery, and how it's kind of not accurate to say that educational institutions were absolved from slavery, that no intelligent mind could ever support slavery. A lot of intelligent minds supported slavery. Just because colleges today are seen as very liberal, it doesn't mean that their inceptions or all these these educational institutions are exempted from being complicit in pretty much this mass tragedy. Yeah, that was my review. Hope you liked it. Talk to you guys later. Bye!